Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So we still have some warm and humid conditions in the east. We do have low pressure coming in from the west, and the combination of those two will mean there will be heavy showers and some thunderstorms over the next few days. We're not looking at anything too severe, but it will be lively at times. As that cooler, more unsettled conditions do push in, we will see temperatures fall a little bit through the weekend and start of next week, but all eyes are what's going to be happening from around the 17th, 18th of August onwards, as the majority of models now are showing something a lot warmer and a lot more sustained as well, and potentially very hot with that, because we're seeing temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s for a number of days, not just one or two odd days like we've seen this week, even into the 30s on some of these hottest runs. We did see some ridiculous operational runs in the last 24 hours. The latest runs are not ridiculous, but we will point out some of these ridiculous runs we have seen. For example, the GFS 6 p.m. run from yesterday evening was showing the upper air temperatures over the 20-degree point for over a week in the south. That is unprecedented temperatures. Being the end of August, it probably wouldn't deliver anything, wouldn't deliver any temperature records, wouldn't deliver 40 degrees or anything like that, but it would be relentless heat with temperatures in the low to mid-30s. So we'll see what these operational runs and ensemble members are showing for that risk of some very hot, maybe heatwave conditions through the second half of August. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So to start on the live radar, you can see it is mostly dry, further southwards and eastwards. Again, there's some more cloud and a few pop-up showers here or there, but we're still just about in the warm, humid air. Further westwards, we're starting to see some bands of showers and storms move in. We did see a band of heavy rain last night that did warrant a yellow warning for rain across Northern Ireland. That has spread through, but now we're seeing some more bands associated with a low out in the Atlantic. And this will become more widespread, mostly in the north and west, but more widespread over the coming days. And by Saturday, Sunday time, we could actually see some heavy rain in the southward and eastward portion of the British Isles. If you look at the temperatures as of 3 p.m, you can see how it is really eastern areas are still warm, maybe into the southwest, still holding on to some of that warmth, but much Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland and Western Scotland now getting into that cooler air. But still across East Anglia, temperatures in the mid to high 20s could again see 27, 28 degrees at the moment in some areas, but it will be cooling down significantly over the next couple of days. You can see that across northwest France as well, cooler air starting to sweep in associated with that Atlantic weather system. If you look at the UKV now, you can see we saw that heavy rain through the north last night, and through this afternoon we'll see more heavy showers and some storms coming in from the west to arrive for Saturday morning. By Saturday afternoon, it could be a widespread day of heavy showers and thunderstorms again. Some regions could escape it, other areas could get quite battered. As we head into Sunday, more for those heavy showers and thunderstorms, maybe less in the far south, and then through Sunday evening we could actually see some persistent rain heading in for Monday morning there, so it could be quite miserable across the south and the east with that heavy persistent rain, but it being still a few days away, things could change with that. And then as we progress through Monday into Tuesday, you can start to see things start to get a little bit drier. A few showers around still, especially in the north, but things start to drier, and that's because high pressure is building in, and that hot air will start to be wafting up from the Mediterranean. As I said, it shouldn't arrive until maybe Thursday, Friday next week. So the upper air temperatures are still pretty warm in the east through the rest of today, but they will be climbing down over the coming days, down to about average for the time of year, around the 7 to 9 degree mark for most regions, before it will start to climb, as I said, into next week. But we're not seeing any hints of that on the UKV yet. Max temperatures, as I said, this afternoon could reach the mid to high 20s, widely 24 to 26 in the east, maybe as high as 27 or 28. Tomorrow could still just about see a 21 to 23 in the east, but widely a lot cooler, and that's the same into Sunday. The east again could just about see 21 to 23, lingering humid air there, but elsewhere back into the high teens. Monday, widely cooler with that more persistent rain in the south. It will mean that not really, hardly anywhere will get much above 20 degrees or so. Maybe an isolated 21 is possible though. And finally into Tuesday, could see temperatures again in the 23 or 24 degree mark in the east. elsewhere a little bit cooler. But that will only be climbing as those upper air temperatures do begin to skyrocket as we do head towards the end of next week. If we do have a look at the longer range now, get over to the GFS, you can see the low pressure coming in off the Atlantic at the moment with a westerly flow providing showers and storms. Eventually into the start of next week, you can see high pressure is starting to build in, but we haven't really got any strong winds here, really slack isobars, which means showers will be either non-existent, or if they do occur, they'll be very slow moving. So we've got to keep an eye on that into early next week, but with the pressure rising, we shouldn't expect too much for the middle of next week. But by Thursday, we start to see a southeasterly wind push in. There is this little pesky low that could develop towards the weekend that could give some showers and storms, but the GFS mainly here has the southerly flow with low pressure out to our west. This latest GFS run does have more low pressure influence, so it would be more showery than other runs are showing, but they all are showing really quite hot conditions, at least until around the 21st to 23rd. Eventually here we actually see some cooler northerly winds arrive right at the extended range. That's the reliable time frame, or reasonably reliable time frame out to day 10. We're in a hot southerly flow. If you do look at those upper air temperatures, you can see the hot air arrives by the end of next working week. 15 degree isotherm in, maybe in the 20 degree isotherm. Bit of a break in the hot air because of these developing lows. Other models, I must say, aren't producing these low pressure systems, so I am a bit sceptical of that. But regardless, we're still in some very hot air by the end of this run, all the way towards day 10 as well. Temperature deviation well above average, maybe as high as 10 degrees above average at times. And this is a cooler run compared to what we have seen. As I said at the start of the video, we should have a look at the 6 p.m. run from yesterday evening. The same as this 6 o'clock run, 6 a.m. run we're just having a look at, is most likely going to be incorrect. But it's that overall pattern and repeating pattern, which is what we're looking at here. And you can see again high pressure building in, and that southerly flow moving in. Look at the 20 degree isotherm arrives on Saturday, the 19th, and we progress through. The 20 degree isotherm lingers further, and it doesn't move until the 27th, and even then it's still over the top of us. So that would imply 7 days of 20 degree isotherm and low to mid 30s. Intense heat. If we just pick out a day here, let's go to the 24th of August and go to 3 p.m. Look at that wide area of 20 degree isotherm in for southern areas, and we put on the 2 meter temperatures. Look at that, widely 30 to 35 degrees, and for the end of August, that is ridiculous heat. If this has occurred a month earlier, we would likely be pushing the 40 degree mark once again, but unlikely being the end of August. But yeah, ridiculous heat from this 6 p.m. GFS run. This is, again, off the scale on the warm end, but it just shows you what could happen with this sort of scenario, with these sort of air masses very close by. Again, if you look at the temperature deviation here, if we zoom out to European look, you'll be able to see it's ridiculous. Look at that. Huge area of 10 to 12 degrees or higher than average here. Ridiculous conditions. But it is one run, and things, as you can see by the 6 a.m. run, it's different. Still pretty hot, but still not quite as intense. But if we have a look at another model, the GEM, again, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, high pressure building in next week with that southeasterly flow. And interestingly, we don't see a split in the low pressure system. It stays as one entity, which essentially means we keep the southeasterly flow with no break. So in the GFS 6 a.m. run, we saw a break. We saw a brief sector of slightly cooler air, which did break up the very hot air. Here we're not seeing that, we're just seeing a straight southerly. And what this means is the hot air is closer by, and it stays in pretty persistently here. Fully moves in by next Thursday, Friday, and then lingers all the way to next Monday. Temperature deviation once again, just touching on 10 degrees above average, and could get to 12 degrees above average if we did put on that very hot air. This definitely just looks like more of a sort of in-between run, more of a realistic pattern, where it's not pulling in the absolutely ridiculously hot air, but it still gets very hot nonetheless. Again, we put on the 2 meter temperatures for this. You can see we're looking at, again here, widely mid to high 20s, touching 30 degrees. Across the near continent, you can see around 33 or 34. Again, that could move in the coming days after this. But again, you can see widely low to mid 20s by the end of this GEM run as that hot air slowly moves in. Even these operational runs are on the lower end for especially the 2 metre temperatures not being as high resolution as like the UKV, for example. So again, we'll have to have a look at these detailed temperatures once we've got the overall pattern completely decided. The ECMWF run is another very hot run. Again, the low pressure out in the Atlantic. It's not split like the GFS style. So if it does split, it splits out in the Atlantic into 2 very weak low pressure systems. Instead, we are under the high pressure with strong southeasterly winds, very hot conditions once again. We do see a brief break in slightly cooler air there, but it's ever so slightly cooler by a couple of degrees. It'd still be pretty warm, widely temperatures in the mid to high 20s, if not getting into the 30s. And again, another inch of the 20-degree isosphere. Similar to the GFS run, yesterday evening's runs were pretty ridiculous. I don't know what the models were doing, but this yesterday evening's ECMWF run was as ridiculous as the GFS run. Look at that huge swathe of 20 plus degree isosphere, and look at that, much of England, Wales, even into Scotland, well over 12 degrees above average. Ridiculous heat from the midday run from yesterday. So you can see the latest operational runs are still very hot. They're not as ridiculous as some of the runs we saw yesterday. But we've got to take them all into account, as in the end, the overall pattern will most likely be somewhere in the middle. If you finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see the latest GFS ensembles are still very warm as we do progress through the second half of August. Around the 17th to around the 25th mark, we are above average. Majority of ensemble members are well above average, with the majority getting to around the 15-degree isotherm, which would give temperatures in the mid to high 20s widely. So that is looking like sort of the benchmark. Mid to high 20s is looking highly, highly likely. Whether it's hotter than that will only happen if we do see some of these insane runs where we do get the 20-degree isotherm in, and you can see probably about a quarter to a third of GFS runs here do get that 20-degree isotherm in. You can see the GFS operational run is a cooler member, especially in the longer term, and has that dip in the middle that most runs don't have. So you can see how the GFS operational run was a little bit of an anomaly, this latest run, compared to most of the ensemble members. But we have to look at the overall pattern here, the overall spread, and you can see it is looking at least 5 degrees above average, maybe as high as 10 degrees above average. Precipitation isn't minimal, it's not zero, which does mean there is the risk of showers and storms, and it probably is due to some of those runs that have got more of the low pressure mixed in. But we will have to see exactly how that, or if that does develop. 2 meter temperatures, very warm, widely mid to high 20s, you can see here by the early 20s of August, widely 25 to 27 here for most of the ensemble members. And if we do actually check out the 6 o'clock run from last night, you can see the GFS operational run there into the mid-30s, the longer range. It was definitely one of the hottest runs, definitely off the scale, but it wasn't completely an outlier. There were plenty of runs going this hot. And finally, to finish, if we look at the ECMWF operational run, very similar, getting up towards that 15 to 20 degree isotherm point. Incredibly hot. Still quite a bit of precipitation though, which may just show you that there is more uncertainty in the overall pressure pattern. As I said, we'll have to just keep a very close eye on what happens. But regardless, the majority of the models are now all in agreement that we're going to see a very warm, if not hot, air mass move in by the end of next working week in around 7 days' time, maybe by as soon as next Thursday, so 6 days' time. We're likely to see temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s. Could be some showers and storms around, that isn't decided yet, but equally there could be very hot conditions into the 30s if we did see some of these hotter, some of the hotter proportion of these runs come off. So we'll have to see what happens, but at this stage it is looking likely. The second half of August is going to be a lot better than the first half of August has been, and a lot better than much of July was. So if you're looking for something a lot hotter, a lot warmer, and hopefully a bit drier as well, then looking good as we do progress through the rest of August. So as I said, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.